Hi there, I'm Annette Satterfield. This is my studio. I'm really glad you're here with me today. And today I am just going to be working with what I call studio ephemera and explain to you what that is and what I like to do with it. And I want to remind you that I film these live in my studio and I bring them to you unedited. So everything that happens here happened while I was working. It's my real studio, and if I make a mistake, I'll make a mistake and you'll get to see that too. To start with, studio ephemera, what exactly do I mean by that? Basically, all of the pieces of paper and experimental things that might have been, these are gel prints, and paint on paper. There is a ton of this. I actually do not keep a sketchbook, nor do I keep a studio journal. I know a lot of artists do, and I've tried over the years, and it's just never worked for me. What I do instead is a lot of that material that goes into a sketchbook or a studio journal is right here. It is in this ephemera. And I work with it in the same way. I work out on my ideas and thoughts and creative processes right here. And so what I like to do with this, though, is it's kind of taking it the last step. And then I turn it into, sometimes I will turn them into what I call a folio, which is a little bit more finished item where I've taken some things I was working on. Fruit. I did a whole bunch of things with gel print fruit in a folio. Or I will sometimes just bind them into essentially a journal, a sketchbook type journal. Sometimes I hand bind them, sometimes I wire bind them. It just depends on the materials. And what I'm going to do today is just do a couple of things. What I do is I collect this material up until I have quite a bit in hand to be able to do something with. And then I start to work with it and to reform it into things that I like the way it looks. For example, I've punched a hole in that one, and apparently I didn't bring that particular hole punch with me. Yes, I did. No, I did not. Let's use a different one. Let's use this one. I love these round hole punches. I think they are amazing for getting a nice perfect circle. So what I'm going to do is just punch some holes out. There. Perfectly round circles. Another one. These are actually something I use for collage sometimes, and sometimes I just include them in a pocket in the folio so that they can go as part of my studio ephemera practice. Another thing I like to do is I have these strips. These have been cut off of something else. I must have done something with this. There's a piece of tissue paper collage down onto that. I must have done something with this and cut it down into a slightly smaller format. But something I like to do with painted papers, especially when they're like this, they have that little white edge, is I want to use what's called a decal ruler. This one, I have several different patterns. They come in a very jaggedy pattern, and the idea is you can use this to, you lay it down on your paper, and then use the edge to tear, I missed a piece here, to tear a rough, really beautiful edge. I absolutely love the way decal edges look. So I like to go in and find pieces that I think would look good with that edge. The sun's come out here. Look at that. There, better. And so I do that, a few strips of those, because those can be bound into one of these folios and make a really, really pretty decorative element. I also use the decal edge ruler on something like this, which, see, it's just floating in the middle of the page, which is nice. It's nice, but I want it to be the right size to be able to be bound into one of these covers, because I do make the covers, and here are a couple that are still in process, and so they'll be folded in half like that for the final folio. So what I'm going to do is just use that to size this piece of paper, and I'm just going to tear it down. I could cut it. I could cut it, but you know, I really like the look of those rough, raw edges. I just think they look amazing. Ouch. And again, we're back to, it doesn't have to be perfect. Isn't that amazing? I just love So I'm going to tear the bottom. So we'll have a piece that is going to be sized to go into a folio cover. So there. And whoops, look at that. There. And what I'll end up doing is I will simply fold one edge of it and bind it in, and probably have to tear this side down too. But I'll get that when I go to make the folio. And in the process, I've also got some more strips. So 2 for 1, right? Another thing I like to do with some of this ephemera and collage material is, instead of punching regular, perfectly round circles, is even more fun. Take a pair of scissors and just cut shapes. No pattern. It's just a kind of a blobby round shape. Another shape I like is an oval. Is a long oval. And that one has a little ear on it. I'm going to cut that off, but normally I wouldn't bother. There. These look really great. It's amazing how something that isn't even all that striking as a piece of warm-up paper. A lot of these papers come from when I'm just started warming up, or I'm trying a new technique. You can see I was trying maybe different colors here, a kind of a variegated look. A lot of this is experimental stuff, but it's amazing what you can get from it when you start to work with it like I'm doing here. And part of the reason I like to work with it this way, and then I like to collect it into thematic or curated folios. So it really gives me a greater insight into my creative practice. And I just wanted to share that with you today. I thank you so much for being here with me today. If you'd like more from the studio, I definitely sign up for my newsletter. I am not on any social medias, and so that is the place to find out more from me. Thanks again. I'll talk to you later.